take a single moment. Listen to this room. Can you feel the earth shaking? Can you hear a life coming alive? Can you see the birth of a hero? Today, I'm going to share the story with you of two lives. And if you can't feel the earth shaking right now, well, that's okay. Because by the time this conversation's over, I promise you this, that when you feel the earthquake, you'll know that the hero being born is you. Once upon a time, a biracial boy was born in England, but adopted by two African Americans for a better life here in the United States. He was raised in the backwoods of Kansas. His mom was a dog food factory worker. His dad worked for the Highway Patrol. Expectations weren't high for that little boy, all the more so because his family was black. His being biracial only complicated things. He didn't look like other people in his family. He didn't act like them either. In a place and time that only knew black and white, the little boy was all alone. During the day, he'd go running for miles in the wheat fields just to feel free. But at night, he'd look up at the stars and dream about a place where he'd never, ever have to run again. In the little boy's mind, it was a city far, far away with magnificent towers, temples made of marble, and chariots of gold. It was a place just like the home of the Greek gods, Mount Olympus. But for a long time, it seemed like the little boy's dream would never come true. You can teach a monkey how to talk, the debate coach said about that half-black little boy. But you can't teach it how to think. The tragedy was that little boy, me, believed him. Believing that story and a zillion others like it caused me to make major life decisions, not based on who and what I was inside, but in reaction to the beliefs of others. That included me becoming an attorney. Because I did that, I was miserable. Miserable. It wasn't until I heard the story of another little boy, one just like me, that things turned around. Who that little boy was and what he taught me are why I stand before you today. That little boy's name was Achilles. Now, you may have heard of Achilles. You might even know his story. But my goal today is for all of us to understand it and for you to apply it to your life. And so, who was Achilles? Achilles was raised in ancient Greece. Like me, he was biracial, but Achilles was the son of a mortal king and a goddess named Thetis. In Greek myths, if you were half human, you inherited mortality. And so from Thetis' perspective, Achilles was born, would grow up, and die in the snap of a finger, while her own life went on forever and ever and ever. And if that wasn't bad enough, when you died, you went to the underworld. You lost your memories, and your identity. You basically wandered around like a mindless zombie forever. To top it all off, Thetis heard a prophecy that if Achilles went and fought in the Trojan War, he'd gain glory. But he'd die very young. Well, like any mother, Thetis chose to act. At first, when Achilles was a baby, she took him by the heel and she dipped him in the waters of the underworld river named Styx. That was supposed to keep him from being harmed. But because the waters never touched Achilles' heel, he could still be killed. Later, when Achilles was an adult, he and Thetis agreed that Achilles should hide away in a remote Greek island, pretending to be the daughter of a local king. That way, he'd never get called to war at all and could live for as long as humanly possible. In other words, because of fear, Achilles lived a life that was a lie. How many of us have done the exact same thing? Lived a life that's a lie, totally because of the fears of other people. Y'all, I know I have. And some of you may have too. And I've regretted every single second that I lived that way. The truth is this: Achilles and me were both living out what are called toxic myths. Stories as old as the gods and goddesses themselves that keep us from living a life that truly comes alive. It's a cliche to say that everything you ever wanted in life is on the other side of fear. But I'll take it a step further. I say that everything that matters in this world, everything is on the other side of toxic myths. And so, what are toxic myths? The concept of toxic myths exists to bridge the gap between Greek myths as an object of study and as a powerful leadership transformation tool. The study of mythology is rich and incredibly complex. Entire bodies of academic work by luminaries like James George Fraser, Joseph Campbell, even Jordan Peterson have been devoted to analyzing and understanding these stories. As with all literature, there's no official canon of Greek mythological genres. That being said, after a lifetime of reading, studying, and absolutely loving these stories, I've identified 5 broad categories of myths that recur in the literature, but also correspond to individual belief systems that keep people from living the life of a hero. These are the 5 toxic myths. Number 1, the tragic origin myth. This occurs when you believe that the circumstances of your birth or early childhood dictate the outcomes of your life, such as the belief that Achilles' father's mortality automatically meant that Achilles could never become immortal himself, or my belief that my background meant I'd never amount to anything. Number 2, the social myth. You're experiencing the social myth when you make your life decisions based on the social expectations of other people, which is exactly what Achilles was doing when he hid away on that remote Greek island, and what I did when I became an attorney just to get social approval. Number 3, the ritual myth, which is when you engage in behaviors over and over and over again, even though they no longer serve you, which is exactly what Achilles was doing when he pretended day after day after day to be a princess, even though that was a total lie. Or what I did when I persisted in staying in a career that wasn't right for me year after year after year. Number 4, the doomsday myth. You're living this out when you believe that the consequences of your decisions will automatically lead to some sort of catastrophe, such as the belief that if Achilles went and fought in the Trojan War, he'd automatically die. Or my own belief that if I left the law behind and switched into another career, I'd face some sort of professional cataclysm. And last but not least, the underworld myth, which is when you perpetually exist in a state of mental, emotional, or spiritual hopelessness, exemplified by Thetis's belief that no matter what, if Achilles went and fought in the Trojan War, his situation was hopeless. Or my own hopelessness, persisting in a career that made me miserable. Only when Achilles was able to shatter his toxic myths was he able to grow. Understanding how that happened taught me to do the same. And it can do the exact same thing for you. The Greeks had been told that they would never win the Trojan War unless and until they found a hero who had been hidden. And so their smartest general, named Odysseus, searched through all of Greece to find this missing hero. Eventually, he came to the island where Achilles was in hiding. And when all of the princesses came out to greet him, Odysseus immediately suspected that one of them wasn't living very authentically. And so he had his men bring out baskets full of gifts. And in these baskets were things that princesses would just love: jewelry, perfume, tiaras. But he also stuck in some weapons and some armor. Unsurprisingly, the princesses all went for the ball gowns. Well, all except one. The sound of trumpets ripped through the sky. Suddenly, the earth began to shake. The towers quivered. Immediately, Achilles was 1.5 feet taller. The light of the sun shot forth from his eyes. He grabbed a sword. He grabbed a shield. At long last, he was himself. He stepped forth. He was a hero. And the sick thing was, all of those toxic myths that he and Thetis believed, every one of them, they were lies. Lies. Because if you chose to be a hero, you didn't go to the underworld and lose your memories and your identity at all. You were given a special dispensation. You got to live in paradise. You could even travel back and forth from the underworld to our world just like a god. And as a matter of fact, if you go to the ruins of Troy right now and you look out of the corner of your eyes and you squint real tight, you just might see Achilles staring right back at you. Like Achilles, I had to learn that my toxic myths were lies. As with the baskets full of gifts, I had to toss aside every single story that wasn't true. I had to hold on to what was real. I had to feel the earth shake inside. But only then could I stand tall and live out my destiny as an entrepreneur, a podcaster, and a guide able to help other folks who are living out their own toxic myths become heroes and take their stories from the dark into the light. And that's what I want for every single one of you. Obliterate your toxic myths. Feel the earth shake inside. Live a life that comes alive. Because I want your future to be epic.